Welcome back, Savannah. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the SavSocial912 Podcast. I'm your host, Missy, and this week I had the pleasure of meeting with the Savannah Paranormal Museum, but I had to film this disclaimer because after my interview with Chris and Megan, I looked back at the footage and for some reason, there's like a ghost trail. Like when we're talking, we're, normal speed, but the actions that we make somehow have a weird delay, and it's kind of unexplainable because I didn't touch any of the settings for my camera. And the next day I shot a podcast and everything's completely fine. So I'm not sure if being in the paranormal museum, the different, energies that are inhabited there may have had an effect on my footage. So if you guys are watching my cut downs, or if you enjoy watching the full episode on YouTube, just know that something very weird and spooky happened. I actually reached out to the Paranormal Museum to ask them if they had any suggestions on how to correct or fix it. And they said some things are just unexplainable. So without further ado, this is probably one of my favorite podcast interviews so far, but please enjoy my interview with Chris and Megan, who opened the Savannah Paranormal Museum. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the SavSocial912 Podcast. I'm your host, Missy, and I have Chris and Megan, who are the owners of the Savannah Paranormal Museum, which is going to be opening May 1st. I know you guys have had some soft opening events on the weekends, but now you guys are gearing up for the real thing. Let's just start from the beginning. So I know you both have lived in Savannah for a long time. So what sprouted the idea to have a paranormal museum?
So I've been in the haunted industry for a long time, and I think that Megan and I, our very first notion of something to do that wasn't a ghost tour was to create a freestanding haunt, kind of an experience, a haunting experience, where you'd go in and it would be more contrived with, actors doing the haunted, sort of thing. We felt that that could be a year-round attraction in Savannah, given the haunted industry here and the hospitality industry and how much haunted tourism there is.
And we've dreamed of this for over 10 years now. I say 15 years. We've been wouldn't it be cool if we had a haunted house experience? This would be amazing. We've looked at properties, but it never came to pass. It was just a lot of work, a lot of insurance, a lot of people, a lot of hands needed. And so we kind of put it to the wayside until about a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, actually, maybe 4 years ago, the first time we ever talked about a museum, which would be curating haunted objects, because I personally had a collection of about a dozen or so haunted objects, and I was like, they're not doing us any good because we hide them.
Right. Ethically, aren't you supposed to be doing that?
There's a simple rule I have, which is haunted objects are not allowed in the house. So when he is called in the middle of the night, he's trying to help friends, acquaintances, and friends of friends of friends who are like, I need your help. I have something haunted. It's driving me nuts. He would go and help them. He would bring it home. And then we have a shed out back, and that's where the things live.
Extremely haunted shed.
Love that.
And so it's not allowed in the house. I think some of it even rolled around in your trunk of your car.
Yes, for a long time it was in the back of my car.
So we already had a collection started.
Got it.
But not quite enough for a museum. But the idea was, that's something that we could do that is very simple to present. Just create a place where people can be in contact with things that other people have said are very, very haunted.
Yes. No, I agree. And I think that there's a huge identity to Savannah with the strange. And that's okay that light just went off. I think that it's really cool that you guys are capitalizing on that. And I'd love to kind of just hear more about your experience with spooky, strange things. Or, obviously you have a haunted shed, but what piqued y'all's interest in spooky, fantastic things?
So I've been chasing ghosts since I was 6 years old. And I started in Germany because my father was in the army, and we went all around the world. So I've chased ghosts on, 5 continents. And I've been able to explore different cultures and different belief structures and different folklore. And it's always just been a deep fascination for me, mostly because I'm very phobic. I'm a very scared person. So when people would say, there's a scary thing, I felt kind of compelled to learn about it because I felt that knowledge was my only hope at alleviating the pressure of the fear.
Definitely.
So chasing down the story became sort of my own way to overcome my fear, because kind of when I knew the story, I no longer felt that dread and fear. And that became kind of how I became, quote unquote, the ghost guy. A lot of people thought of me that way. A lot of my friends would think of me that way. And it's not how I wish to be perceived, because I'm actually very scared. So it's I would prefer it not be that, hey, Chris is the ghost guy. It's like, I'd rather just be the guy who's very wary and has a distance to it. But that has led me into like conducting ghost tours, because I had collected so many stories, leading ghost investigations, because that is a part of, like, even if you can't find the story historically, you can find a story personally.
Right.
So like if you go on a ghost hunt, you're basically creating a story that encapsulates an experience and encapsulates what's going on. And then that's where the ghost lives. The ghost lives in that experience and not necessarily clinging to you or following you or, haunting your nightmares. It just kind of lives in the story. So I am chief and foremost a story collector.
I love that.
So I was not into the paranormal, but we talked about this. I went to SCAD, and so about 20 years ago, I was a student at SCAD, and I had a group of friends who was like, oh, you got to meet this guy, Chris Susi. He's taking us on a ghost hunt. I'm like, what? And so we had met, and we were going on ghost hunts. This was before we were ever dating or anything. It was like, oh, Chris is doing a ghost hunt tonight. Great, let's go. We get in the car, go middle Georgia somewhere, half the night up doing ghost hunts, and then end at Waffle House for our safety. We're not bringing anything home, and then have the Waffle House. And so I started going on ghost hunts with Chris and like a crew of friends where we're just like, let's just do it. It would be so fun. And it's led us to a lifetime of ghost hunting, honestly, because now with his podcast, Most Haunted City on Earth, they have funded us to go to different places. Just last year, we went to the Conjuring House, Waverly Hill Sanatorium. We personally have been to the Lizzie Borden House. And even just in here, we've done ghost hunts before anything was in this space to find that this building's haunted too. So that's kind of how I got started in the paranormal, I would say.
I dragged her into it.
I love it. Well, I'm glad that the most haunted city in the country, or, Savannah's definitely up there. I'm glad that we have a resident ghost hunter, ghost whisperer.
Well, yeah, and that was another thing. We used to, and we talk about this often, that ghost hunting, it's a terrible term.
We're ghost listening.
We're ghost hoping. We're ghost looking. There is no hunt to it.
We're not going to capture a ghost and be like, look at my ghost.
It's like, there it is on the wall. I caught that ghost.
I cut its head off and mounted it.
Back so that ghost in Madagascar.
No, we're just hoping we get some sort of heebie-jeebies and we can go home and be like, I think I saw something maybe.
Right.
I think I heard something. Listen to this recording.
Right.
Doesn't that sound like something? No. Okay, that's okay. I heard it.
Yeah, and I do think it's a rite of passage. Like, I've lived in Savannah 15 years. If you haven't lived in at least like one house that's a little haunted.
Oh, no, they look down on you if you don't have a ghost in your house around here. Like, oh, do you have a ghost in your house?
It's like a rite of passage.
It kind of is. But let's circle back to, like, obviously you guys are very well versed in like the city of Savannah and ghost activities happening.
Oh, yes.
So where would you recommend like the most haunted places to go? If you can name a few.
So the beauty of Savannah is it is woefully haunted, and it has these incredible areas where people have spent so much time just kind of focusing their energies and their fears and their love of the story. So you have your wide pick. That's kind of why we call our podcast The Most Haunted City on Earth. It's not because we have the most ghosts, and it's not because we're the most haunted. It's because there's so many places that are revered as haunted, and so many places that you can go to openly and visit that are haunted. To me, one of the most haunted places you can go to is the Savannah Theater. I've had lots of experiences there. I worked there for over 20 years, and so I've had countless encounters with the spirits of that building. There's the Marshall House, which also was shared a wall with Old City Lights Theater, which I worked at. I was there the day they found all the bones when they were renovating the Marshall House.
Wait, what's the story there?
The Marshall House. So the Marshall House, when they were renovating it, it was really dilapidated, and it had a couple of storefronts, like a shoe repair shop and things like that. When they decided to turn it back into a hotel, they had this major renovation project going on, and this was in the 90s, and they were in the basement kind of renovating, and they pulled down the facade of a wall, and the wall was entirely full of human bone.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes. And it freaked them out, and everybody was sure that it was like a serial killer because there was so many bones. But it turned out that when the Marshall House was a makeshift hospital during the Civil War, it was the bones from amputations. They actually would put the limbs, they just throw the limbs into a opening in the floor. And it turned out that it just filled a wall in the basement.
What is the rationale behind that? Like,
well, it was just because of the speed at which they were operating and the volume at which they were operating, because people were coming from all over with these festering, horrible wounds. And it's like, oh, got to chop off the limb. And it's really kind of horrifying when you think about the fact that surgery was not sterile. It was not, a lot of these people probably went on to die of the infections from the surgery itself. So there's a lot of like, oh gosh, that's just terrifying to think about. But yeah, it was chock full of bones.
Yes. And do you have a spot you'd recommend?
I generally, when we go downtown, we just like to wander around because Colonial Park Cemetery was 3 times bigger than it is now?
It is, yeah.
Because they just moved the headstones and didn't move the bodies. So my favorite was Moon River.
Oh, yeah.
The basement before it closed.
Gosh, yeah.
Definitely loved down there. And my favorite was, I used to be a wedding photographer and I would shoot weddings down there. Like, oh, and your reception's down here in the haunted basement of Moon River. Okay, great. Smile, kiss.
Yes,
photo time.
romantic.
Yeah, so that was my favorite. I wonder if we'll be able to get into it anytime ever again.
Well, I have to imagine. I mean, it's such a prime real estate that a business will move.
Something will move,
and
in.
they will be sympathetic to the
Yes.
because everybody's just frothing at the mouths to get in there. So yes, I think that will be a ground zero haunted occasion when they open that back up. And that's true. Just walking around downtown Savannah. You go down through downtown Savannah late at night. It is an eerie. It's a totally different animal. Mm-hmm. Savannah by day and Savannah by night are 2 different towns.
Totally agree.
Creates this sensation that a very foreboding sensation as you're walking around, and you can get really kind of lost in the feel of the place. When I first moved here, I used to walk around late at night and kind of just sense places, and then the next day I'd go and I'd like knock on the door.
Yeah,
and I'd be like, "Hey, do you have any strange things that happen here?" These were oftentimes people's homes, and I was always amazed that the places that really make you kind of like feel weird at night, you knock on the doors, and the people behind the door were like, "Oh yeah, this place is crazy haunted. Let me tell you this story. Let me tell you what happened last night." 9 times out of 10, they wouldn't know anything other than what was happening to them, but it was so interesting to be like, oh yeah, late at night, you walk around and this house just like exudes this chill.
And I'll say there's different levels of exudedness depending on who you are. Chris is semi-sensitive to the paranormal. His podcast partner, Madison, very sensitive. Me personally, complete blocker. I don't get the heebies or the jeebies. Like, I'll run up the stairs at night, but it's my own mind.
Right.
And so even like in this space, like, nothing. We unbox something that's woefully, don't touch it. I'm like, oh, it's kind of cute though. And I'm holding it. He'll hold it. Woogie, gonna pass out. My head's swimming. I'll hold it. Be like, this is sweet. Let me get her where she's going.
Oh
this
my
doll.
Gosh. You're the shield.
Yes. I'm the shield. And we have one more employee who's also a shield. And so we are the barrier where it's like, we're going to be okay. We're here to help. We need to touch the thing that's going to make somebody who experiences things sick. Don't worry. Give it to me. I've got it. No problems.
Totally get that. Well, it's good that you guys kind of balance each other
Yes,
out.
I think if we were both sensitive, we would not have pulled this off.
You need to bring somebody who's a blocker or not sensitive or a very strong skeptic with you, simply to ground you at because otherwise you'd just be sitting in the dark going, did you hear that? 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 What was that?
And we've done that too. I mean, weird sounds. We were here one day and there was a big knock. And Chris goes, did you hear that? I'm like, stop saying that because we've spent the whole day saying that. Knock. Did you hear that? Yes, I heard it. I hear it. Something's okay, whatever. And then we went home that night and we're getting ready for bed. Knock.
Same sound.
God.
It followed us home, Megan. Yeah, just pretend it didn't. Relax. It's okay. We say, you're not wanted here. Head back to the museum. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
No problems.
Yeah. Anytime I'm worried about ghosts in my house, I'm like, if you stay, you have to pay a third of the rent.
Yeah.
And that scares them. They leave
Do the
immediately.
dishes.
Come on.
Exactly.
You gotta put in a little bit.
But I do know, like, from my own personal experience, it's very minor, like acknowledging what's going on.
Absolutely.
Like, rather than being scared, because I think that feeds the fear feeds their strength. If that makes sense.
What they're looking for is acknowledgement. So they don't want to spend any energy to make you scared. So if you acknowledge them beforehand, they can conserve their energy. They get the acknowledgement and they feed on it. But the purpose of a ghost making these noises, making these things, is to garner your attention. So if you just give it freely, they don't have to expend energy. They don't have to scare you. they can just accept what you offer them. And generally you can have a good peaceable, I had a long-standing relationship with the Ghost of the Savannah Theater where as soon as I walk in, I would acknowledge, I would say, hi, I'm here.
Yeah.
We're just going to do a little rehearsal. Everything's going to be fine. And it would tamp down on all the activity. Because there was a time when it was really hairy in there and we would like lose our tools and we couldn't figure things out and we'd feel like very oppressive. But once we were able to kind of just say, well, just acknowledge that they're there and just, tell them that, you honor and respect their presence, they won't bother you. They get what they want.
Yes. Or I've learned to like giving kind of boundaries. Like sometimes
boundaries are important too.
The cemetery that's right on Oglethorpe Street that you can like walk through and hang out. Anytime I go through there, right when I walk out, I'm like, okay, whatever was in there, you cannot follow me.
Do not follow me back.
Leave me here. And it's surprising how like little things, maybe it's just feeding my mind and giving me some. Well,
your mind is your best defense. It is your system of belief that the spirits are trying to utilize to attach themselves. And if your system of belief includes a way to keep them from attaching, they don't have anything to grab onto. They will not follow you if you have a secure. And that's why it's interesting because people don't talk about the idea of the stages of possession or the stages of a spirit. But the very first one is the very first one is infestation. It merely means that there's a presence and it is just everywhere and it's trying to get through and it's looking for those little cracks in your facade, in your beliefs, it's looking for a way to kind of root itself into your daily activities. And it creates doubt and little doubts. And the stronger the doubts goes, it becomes obsession. It goes from infestation to obsession. And in obsession, it's there and you're now feeding it that knowledge and you're broadening those cracks and your belief structure is now leaning more towards their dominance. And then, from obsession, it goes to possession. And you're just getting these kinds of periods of growth where the spirit is really just trying to insinuate itself in your belief structure. But if you can hold tight to your belief structure, which is why faith is always used to combat these kinds of spirits, it's because our faith, which is, usually spoon-fed to us from a very young age,
we're conditioned,
is pretty strong. These spirits slide off of it because they can't get their footholds in it. But unfortunately, a lot of faith involves scary things. There's a lot of scary aspects to it. And so so a lot of times people are quick to be like, oh, it's a demon. It's like, well, no, but it probably is playing upon your belief of demons. It's probably playing upon the fact that that's the only way this spirit is going to get into your inner life and into your living situation.
That's so fascinating.
And we have a lot of things in the museum that helps prevent things from going home with people. We want to keep them here. And we hope that in time they will want to stay here. Like we went to the Lizzie Borden house, very scary, very active. We were just shocked. And we actually spent the night there. And when we left in the morning, the second we drove away, I felt amazing and no problem. I'm like, oh, those ghosts love being there. They love performing this trick for people. They love the attention. And so when we left, everything was fine. They didn't follow us. You could tell. So here, we're hoping things will not follow people home, but we've got a couple things in place to help prevent that from happening, including we have a meteorite iron staff in the front so people can touch it as they leave and leave anything behind that might have attached to them, as well as a waiver to sign that if something does attach to you, we are held harmless by the court of law.
Right. Yes. Well, it's good to have your bases covered.
Yeah, you have to cover your bases.
Yeah, but I'm sure
you're not responsible for any attachments that you may possessions and or attachments,
experiences you have outside of the space,
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No, I think that's fascinating because I'm sure a lot of people are a little bit like, reluctant to come into a place like this. Absolutely. And then not, or, like there's definitely some energy going on in here.
Yes. But for every protective item that you see, there's a couple that you don't. We're definitely putting as much different faiths, different belief structures and ideologies at work, kind of fulfilling the idea that spirits adhere to ritual that man, made over time. All rituals kind of just are about reinforcing an idea. So like if you have Middle Eastern or Asian influenced spirits, we have something for that. If you have, any Eurocentric or American spirits, we have things that are by condition of the rituals of the culture repellent to spirits.
That is so interesting. You've definitely gotten me to like wonder what kind of objects you guys have around here. Are there any that you'd love to like highlight or stand out?
So yes, well, we do have, as far as like the haunted artifacts that we have collected. We've got an amazing Jack in the Box that was featured in Collectors Weekly as one of the most haunted items in the world. And it is a very menacing spirit attached to this box.
We had some local psychics in who are on his podcast, and they called out what it was. They were like a wood box before they ever saw it. And they taught us that it is basically an entity attached to it that loves to feed off of surprising people and scaring people.
It says it feeds when it opens.
So when it opens,
Jackbox, it pops out,
and it feeds.
Everybody like, oh,
got it.
And so we've decided to leave him open to piss him off because he can't do his trick and gain energy from scaring people. He's just
he'll
always
starve
open
because he doesn't get the potential. You know, basically we were told in that session that by closing the box, he is in a perpetual state of growing. He's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. But if you leave it open, he's not coiled. The spring isn't coiled. He doesn't have all that pressure building up. He doesn't have that potential energy coming in. We have Emeraldine.
So we've dedicated a whole room to one specific doll just because of her reputation upon coming in here as one of the most ridiculously haunted dolls. And I'm like, let's give her a whole room.
Yeah.
Is this the greasy doll or is this different?
That's a
the
new
greasy
one.
doll is brand new. Just came to us.
I saw that on TikTok and I was like, dang, they got some serious things.
Gross.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. And the greasy doll was too greasy for me. It's
weird.
odd.
So it's behind glass now. Don't touch it. Don't lick it. No one should lick it.
Yeah.
Do not lick.
But we do have Emeraldine, and she's been interesting because one day we came in and she had moved her head in the night. And so she had always been looking forward. And then one day Chris comes in and she's looking like this. And he goes, who moved her head? And he sends the group chat a picture. And we're all like, none of us did that.
Oh my God.
And so she just looked at the door like, excuse me? And so when people come in to visit her, we've had many people say she said her name because we have a radio box going all the time so they can listen to it going up and down the stations to hear the in-between sounds. So they've heard her name, but the most common occurrence is get out. Leave.
Go away.
Go away.
Leave.
And so she's always telling people to go away.
Sometimes she's very accommodating for a bit. But there comes a point at which she's like, all right, that's enough.
Go away. And she calls our other employee jerk all the time. 3 times now. Jerk. We know who she's talking about. She does not like Justin. I'm hoping it's playful. She could use more colorful language if she wanted.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
I think she's flirting, to be honest.
I think she's flirting with him too.
I've met Justin and he's definitely not a jerk. So.
Yes.
Well, can confirm.
It's because the other word is comedian.
She
says you're funny,
you're so
comedian.
Funny.
So I think jerk is like a term of endearment
being
kind of
sassy.
thing.
Yeah, I think she's trying to like tease him.
So do you think that there's like a entity or like a spirit attached to this doll?
There's
or
two entities.
Two.
How does that work?
So the story of Emeraldine is Emeraldine is named after Emeraldine Schwartz, who was a black magic practitioner who was believed to conjure demons.
And she used the doll that that we have displayed to hold the demons in it. And she spent her life doing this.
And this practice is a practice that witches have used for centuries, and they usually call them poppets. A poppet is a physical form, a doll, that you can put a spirit into, and then when the spirit is in the doll, it now can interact with our world, with our realm.
Wow.
So Emeraldine's sisters knew that this doll was bad news. And so when Emeraldine died, they were certain that she immediately went into the doll. And so they sought help. They're like, what do we do? And they started talking to all these psychics.
Okay, so the psychics were like, we've got a solution for you. There is a ring. Did she use this ring to summon demons?
And the ring itself apparently had a demon in it.
So they took the ring and they took a lock of her hair and made a braid out of it and put it around the doll's neck. And the thought pattern was if Emeraldine has inhabited the doll and there's a demon in the ring and putting them together for all eternity, they will basically fight for supremacy of the doll.
They won't do any external damage. They'll be so busy trying to get control of the doll.
Right.
Yeah.
So they had it in an attic for years, didn't they?
Yeah, so the sisters kept it in the attic and kind of kept it as this family, boogeyman
Dirty
story.
secret.
Emeraldine will get you to the children.
Gosh, yeah.
But when the sisters passed and only their children were around, the children were like, I don't want
that.
We don't want this doll, that we've been terrorized our whole lives about.
Yeah.
So they gave it over to a psychic research group who were experimenting with the doll for years. And the psychic research group had all these interesting notes about it. They're like, if you play Bobby Days over and over, you get higher like EMF spikes off the doll, as if the doll really likes this song, and all these interesting things. She's very interactive with the spirit box. She's very interactive with these various things. But over time, they felt that their exposure to her was giving them kind of a sensation of ick, that they didn't want to continue to constantly be exposed to this doll. So they handed it over to another paranormal museum in Oklahoma. And then that museum went out of business. And that's when we we
did a bulk purchase of that museum, but the thing I was most excited about was this Emerald Dean doll. She's very creepy. Her mouth is open, and you can just see two little teeth, and the mouth just goes all the way. And like, how deep does the mouth go? What is happening? It's so
very
weird. It's very unsettling.
She's a surprisingly unsettling doll because she's kind of small. She doesn't really like when you first see her. You're not thinking.
She's got those eyes that open when she tilts up.
But like one of her eyes is always just a little off. Like it's either in shadow or it just looks weird.
Some people refuse to go into her room completely. I'd say 25% of people who've come through this museum will not enter the room.
We'll just stand at the door and kind of like open it, look in, and be like, no, thank you.
Yeah, don't doubt
And so we encourage them to go in, but if they don't want to, we're like, okay, no problem.
Yeah, we have a spirit box running the entire time and a spirit chat, which is a word bank that ideally allows spirits to communicate through a word bank by choosing words to represent their thoughts. And we've had amazing interactions.
We're definitely going to put you in this room when we're done here.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Or if you can want to take me around to see some of these items. I'm so interested and I'm really glad you guys are going to be up and running full time because I think there's so much stories and lore behind this.
Oh, absolutely. And the beauty of it is we will continue to build. We'll get more items.
We're growing and growing, and we're open to receiving things.
We'll be investigating. We'll be holding.
We're doing investigations, and hopefully we'll have people can book investigations here at night. It's not something that's going to be ready right away, but we're hoping in the coming months, if you wanted to book your own investigation here with a small team, you could. So that's something really that's in the works right now.
Yeah, or we have our own Annabelle doll essentially, or there's a lot of cool stories, and I love the way you guys have put this all together. I can't wait for the actual walking tour. So is there anything else you guys want to share about getting up and running, or how do you think May is going to go? Are you doing a grand opening or anything?
So we have a grand opening planned. It is May 1st at 4:30 p.m., although I recommend getting here at 4 because that parking lot will fill up. We're going to do a whole ribbon cutting, and then people can come through and see the museum for free. And we'll be kind of collecting Google reviews and things like that just to get us on our feet. But also the TikTok's been really where it's at.
Yes, your TikToks have been so fabulous. And then your podcast is really cool too.
Thank you.
Or, I try to not look into you guys too much just because I love asking questions, but you guys should definitely check. It's the most haunted city in
the most haunted city on earth podcast, and wherever you find your podcast. And we've been doing it for almost 4 years now.
4 years, yeah.
And it's been a great adventure for us because it really was just two friends who talk ghosts all the time, and then finally it was like, well, put a microphone in front of them, and we've been able to really help a lot of people feel less isolated in their occurrences, because that's, I think, one of the worst things is there's a lot of people who have these experiences but fear being judged, or fear if they share it they'll instantly, everyone will think they're crazy or things like that. And it's well, no, we will listen with fully open ears and fully open hearts. And that's kind of important because a lot of people underestimate the reasons we have these experiences, and even more so with the reasons we share them. And it's a lot of the times people have to share these stories, but they don't know where and they don't know how. And just the alleviation of being able to tell someone without the fear of being judged.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to offer, is this place where it's this world is full of weird things and strange things occur. And it's amazing. We actually have been almost on this weird crusade to uncover the Hat Man, who is a spirit that people have been experiencing for a long time now, but only recently have people been talking about how frequent it is.
Right.
Because everybody kept it to themselves.
Yeah.
That they were seeing this large, shadowy hat.
Ooh, I have goosebumps right now because I feel like I've seen this. Yeah.
See, that's the most amazing thing about the Hat Man is I've told people about the Hat Man, and while telling them, they're going through their minds and going, I've had that experience. I've seen that thing. A lot of people who had sleep paralysis.
Yes.
That's where they have seen him. And it's like, so it's interesting that there is like this groundswell. And on our show, we have, we do a lot of viewer mail, and we get all these letters in, and we're like advancing the Hat Man story amongst ourselves because it's kind of a weird phenomenon.
Yes. Or if I can like add to that, I know you weren't expecting to get into this. But the first time I heard about the Hat Man, I've had my own experience with like sleep paralysis and like, you know, the entities that like come into your room. But the first time I heard about Hat Man was actually at the Turner dorms right down the street from you.
Oh, sure.
There was a RA who, she lived like 2 doors over from me, but she came to our room like freaking out and crying one night because she was sleeping, and she said that there was a tall, like dark man with like this tall hat sitting at the foot of her bed, and she was so spooked she couldn't go back in for, you know, she didn't stay the night in there. But that was the first time I ever heard of it. But like, there's a lot of energies around this side of town.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oof. But I also have heard a lot about sleep paralysis, and if it's actually like, if your nightmares are truly lore, or if it's like, some people say if you're not getting the proper amount of oxygen, your body will like go into fight or flight and try to scare you into waking up.
What's fascinating is because apparently what happens is that there is a mechanism in your body that shuts your physical body down while you're asleep to keep you from sleepwalking or doing anything like that. So sleepwalking and sleep paralysis are 2 sides of the same coin. During sleepwalking, that piece of your brain is turned on and allows you to move around while you're asleep. On the other side, sleep paralysis, you wake up, but that part of your brain has not turned on.
Yes.
And so you no longer have control. You can't walk around. You can't move. And apparently, you know, just the stress of that is enough to cause hallucination, to cause all these, you know, nightmares. Because you're basically still asleep physically, even if you're consciously awake. And those things don't go well together.
Yes, I
know. It's a dangerous combination. But yeah, so Hat Man is fascinating to us because I've known about Hat Man for a long time. Like my experience with Hat Man was actually a shadow figure, and it looked like he had a bowler hat. So I called him Hat Man. But when I started hearing there's all these different variations, tall like top hat, a fedora hat, a wide brim fedora hat. Then there was a character called Spring Hill Jack in the Victorian era, and he was this cloaked figure that would bounce and bound. So they call him Spring Hill because he could jump over walls.
Right.
But when they described him, they said that you couldn't see his face over because he had this big wide brimmed hat.
Yes.
But he breathed like sulfur smoke. And I was like, that's weird. But how interesting that there's this wide brimmed hat creature. And you keep going back, you start to realize, oh, you know, this figure, this shadowy figure in the wide hat fits into a lot of our, you know, society. We've always had the, you know, Snidely Whiplash villain with the top hat and the cloak.
Yes.
And even if you go to any neighborhood in America, you will find a neighborhood watch picture, and it's a shadow with a dark hat and cloak, and you just see the 2 eyes, and it's like we've always acknowledged that Hat Man, that the spirit of some scary thing with a hat, to even culminate in Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, he's a nightmare entity wearing a hat, so it obscures his face, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. How bizarre that all these things kind of converge into a mythology.
Yes. No, I think that's so fascinating, and how it's like a universal experience.
Right. It's a universal experience. It is. We're filmmakers too. So we've been working on a Hat Man movie for a while, just in pieces. You know, it's like, it'll probably be like an anthology piece, but these experiences that people have are so fascinating because, you know, like we just recently had a letter where somebody had Hat Man speak, and we're like, oh, we did not know Hat Man spoke. You know, we never thought of Hat Man as that type of entity, as a particularly chatty individual. Because for the longest time, we thought he was just a watcher, because that's what everybody, like he's just standing watching you.
Yeah.
And that's bad enough.
I feel like he like feeds off the fear. Yeah.
Or just, you know, he has this kind of voyeuristic extension of dread that you're being watched. I mean, that's enough. But we've had stories of him approaching, of him coming right up to the bedside, to reaching out and
right
things like that.
over
And you're
you.
like, yeah, exactly. And you're like, oh, that's more diabolical. You know, it's now getting to be
Or the worstest feeling, or my first experience with sleep paralysis, I saw like a dark figure come in, and then it got pretty much like over my bed, and I remember trying to like yell for like my parents, and I couldn't get the actual yelling out, and then and you just kind of you're like a sitting duck just sitting there, you know. But then you wake up.
Yeah, you have all that vulnerability.
Yeah, definitely. It's very spooky in a different way. But thanks for reassuring me that I'm not the only person.
You're not the only person. And that's
like
I think that's the important thing is that's kind of one of the things that we'd like to do on the podcast is like, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Countless people have these experiences, but you're so far spread apart that you don't get to have like a support group. You don't get to really meet, but to hear other people write in and say, this is my Hatman story. This is my story of encountering this thing. And sometimes we'll run into things that we've never heard of before. And then like within a few weeks, other people will be responding saying, oh, this happened to me. And it's like, that's great. There's now a network of people who are able to say, you're not alone. You're not experiencing this by yourself. Well, I think this is a very unique experience getting to like talk to you guys about your museum, but also just kind of like the lore and all the spooky things happening in Savannah. But I know I feel a lot better having some experts in town that can kind of like help unpack the paranormal and it be like an informative and educational
And we hope this will be a bit of a beacon of the community of when things go wrong, they can come here, they can bring their objects here, they can bring their stories here.
We're talking about actually having like a
drop box out front.
For haunted items.
Drop your haunted items out front. We'll handle it from here.
That's amazing.
Leave a story if you have one or not. We'll figure it out on our own time.
I love that. And I also think I saw Justin post about a confessions booth.
There is a confession booth.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's really weird because they lined it with some soundproofing. So when you go in, it feels like you're getting into a plane. Your ears pressurize. So that way, if people are in there telling their story, it's not like infecting the whole museum.
Yes.
And I'll say, of the experiences we've had, no one has yet run out of here screaming. So
Good.
Or is it?
All right. Well, I'm excited. I hope to catch you guys at your grand opening, which I'll just echo back is May 1st at 4:30. So get here a little early at 4.
415 West Boundary Street.
We'll be open all day. So,
And there is parking. There's gravel parking, but we'll probably have people park a little further down the way.
And once you guys are open, what's the best way to like get tickets? Or do you do online? Do you just
all our tickets are being sold at our front desk. We don't foresee a huge rush for the need to buy them online just yet.
We hope hopefully eventually there will be online tickets, but there's such a heavy fee for online tickets that it's going to be okay to just get them at the door for the time being. And if it comes to pass where it's just so popular, we will have an online way to do it.
Awesome.
Yeah, right now we're thinking that the only thing that would call us to do that is if we run into occupancy issues.
Right.
Where we would have to sell tickets basically on an hourly
Just a
basis.
time slot. Like pick your time slot, but still get your ticket here.
Awesome. And are these guided tours or are you just kind of like rolling
These are free roaming tours, but there is an audio tour.
There's an app that's an audio tour, but instead of it being a walkthrough tour, you can pick your item and learn more about it through the audio tour.
So if there's something that you want to know more about, you look it up on the thing and just click it.
And is this for like all ages? Is it like okay bringing kids here or like too spooky?
That is a...
It's at the parents' discretion. We've had people come through with like a 3 and 5 year old. We've had an infant come through. It's a little bit cheaper for under 12, but otherwise, at your discretion, bring the children or don't.
Yes. Okay, cool. Well, I will bring my adult friends.
Yes,
and
please
we'll have a fabulous time. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
No.
I know we talked about a lot.
Thank you so much, Missy.
Yes, and thank you guys for coming on, and thank you guys for watching another episode of the SavSocial912 Podcast. Please come to the opening or get tickets once you're up and running in May. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I'm going to come back for ghost stories though.
Yes,
we have so
absolutely.
much
Please do.
to discuss. All right, thanks, guys. Stay social.